thanks for joining us, Claudine. It's really great to have you on board. Claudine's done some pieces ahead of time just so that we can show everybody who's joined a demonstration of what Procolour can do, how it can be reproduced, because we imagine a lot of people who are joining this particular workshop are interested to know the best way that they can sort of commercialise their talent. So I think if we jump to the overhead camera, Charlotte, if Claudine, you wouldn't mind just giving a little demonstration of Procolour and just walking us through your thoughts on the range, really.
Cool. Well, I'll just do a brief intro to how I work. So mostly, like, as much as I can, I kind of work from real life. So I have sketched this out in advance. And even though, as I said, I've drawn a kind of a full version of this already, but I've got another rows to draw just because I much prefer working kind of from something that I can see as opposed to a flat image. So this is just a sketch outline that I did in advance. And I guess just, I don't know if you know my work, but if you do, it's kind of very colour focused and mainly like observational drawing. I focus on wildlife and nature a lot. And as you can see here, I kind of just, when I'm starting off, select all the colours I think I'm going to need to start. And when I'm drawing something, I tend to try to not pick the most important bit first. Just because, like anything, I need a bit of a warm up, even if I do this every day. So as I was saying, this is kind of was actually my first attempt at Procolour, because I usually use Derwent Procolour as kind of my go-to, because I'm very keen on, as you'll hopefully see, blending and using lots of different colours in my work. And kind of the thing that really appeals to me with Procolour, actually, since using it, which you'll probably see, is a sharp point is very important to me when I'm drawing. So I think it's very rare to get a pencil that both blends very well, but also keeps that kind of sharp point. If you've seen any of my work before, you'll see like I do kind of, my style is quite like fluid, but also graphic. So I've got kind of lots and lots of different colors blended together, but also very kind of straight kind of graphic lines. I think the thing with Procolour is I feel like I'm not like pairing my pencils as much as I would with other pencils, which is great. Because also I'm not like spending time doing that, but also they just keep the point a bit longer. And also I can do that kind of blending colors together, but also keeping a point. So I'm just going to try to get a chunk of this done quicker than I normally would and chatting more than I normally would. You can kind of see what I'm demonstrating. So I'm onto kind of the reds here. And when I'm kind of doing color work like this, I use a lot of colors that you maybe wouldn't necessarily think. So whenever I'm doing something like a red, I always use like quite a lot of blue, which is obviously like a contrasting color, but I use that in the shadow areas. So this is what I would describe as kind of a rapid demonstration. I usually take quite a while longer, and just to kind of get some of those lines in. Like I said, yeah, for anybody that's done a workshop with me before, like I kind of, the main thing I teach both in person or online would be kind of color theory, very loosely, just kind of contrasting colors and kind of using those colors that you maybe don't necessarily see when you're drawing, but they can add that kind of light and shade variation. As you can see here, I'm using lots of red, and usually, to be honest, like when I'm drawing, I would have sharpened my pencils about 8 times by now. But as you can see, they're keeping a really good point. And that kind of, where I'm putting the blue in here, that's kind of, I guess, it's shading, but that's kind of my visual style, is this kind of blended color, but also these sharp points of overlaid lines. So I think, yeah, just for me, it works really well for that. And I guess that like translates to lots of other styles as well, because I work, you can probably hear it, well, you can't actually, but I work quite heavy with my pencils. So I wouldn't describe myself as very delicate when I'm drawing. Like I lean quite hard. I can get calluses on my fingers, and these are just very sturdy, like they don't snap, which saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, so from our perspective, I mean, when the two Derwent ranges that we would particularly recommend for professionals are the Procolour range, which Claudine's demonstrating right now, and also our Lightfast range. They do have completely different properties, so they're useful for different things. So as Claudine said, the Procolour range is good for helping time saving, because you don't have to sharpen so much, but it still has that smooth lay down without snapping. And our Lightfast range is, as the name suggests, completely 100% Lightfast. So that's best if you're looking to sell your originals, because it will stand the test of time. They'll remain Lightfast for up to 100 years, so the colours will stay exactly the same. And Procolour is really great if you want to reproduce your work, because the core is specifically formulated so that there won't be any scanner glare. So the artwork reproduces really accurately to the original.
Yeah, and I think that's something. So again, I don't know how many of you know my work or know my career or anything like that, but prints are like quite a big part of what I do, I guess. I guess like I do commercial projects, but I also do personal work, and most of my personal work I sell as prints. And like that, sometimes I do screen prints and different types, but usually I do digital prints for my pencil work. So actually, I don't know, Kate, if you want me to show an example now, but I've got an example of this finished.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, so let's put my marker pencils down. I will come back to this and just keep drawing as I answer questions. Those interested. This is the finished version, and this is the print. So the only thing I will say that is different is I actually work on slightly off-white paper. So this is obviously printed on pure white with a bit of it's actually on gesso paper, so it's got a bit of a texture. But as you can see, it's pretty hard to tell. And I've always said, like, I sometimes work digitally, but when I'm tidying up an image or anything like that, people often ask, like, oh, do you do lots of Photoshop on it or anything? Like, I literally don't do anything. I just scan it in, and if I've got any smudge marks around it, I kind of get rid of them, and that's about it. And yeah, the Procolour, like, as you can hopefully see, it's pretty exact.
Yeah, that looks really great. So in terms of, I just had a thought come to my head. For people that are looking to reproduce their work and sell as prints, do you have any tips for how they can market those? So for example, is there a way that you'd recommend to kind of sort of increase the value of them because they're not the original? Would you kind of sign them? Like, what's your process?
Yeah, well, I think I can basically speak about my own process because there's so many different ways of doing it. But I would say if you're doing like for screen prints or anything like that, I tend to do as a limited edition, because they're like a physical print that you're making, and I'll do them as a limited edition and I sign them. For my digital prints, I keep them open, and I do sign them. But I would say I wouldn't even say about like. So the thing with pricing prints is, for me, I sell a lot of my prints wholesale and also like through online sellers and through actual independent stores. So it's really important when you're setting your prices that you have that continuity of pricing. So if a print is £40 on your website, the retailer is going to want to sell it for £40 as well. So then you kind of need to accept that they're likely going to take 40% of that. So that's just something worth bearing in mind. Because I think a lot of people, especially when you're starting out, like you can maybe say, oh, it's a digital print, you know, I can keep making hundreds and thousands of them. I'll just sell it like for less so that more people buy them. But actually, as a long-term kind of tip, I would say price it a little bit higher, sign them all yourself. And that doesn't mean that obviously you can't send them direct to something like wholesale or anything like that. But actually that's kind of, I would say that's worth doing, and just price it in a point that you're comfortable with. So for me, I sell most of my A3s at £40 to £45. And again, like I said, so anyone that wholesales me, I sell quite a lot in Dublin because I'm Irish, if you haven't caught the accent. But I sell them there and online and in some shops in the UK as well. And they sell them for the same price, even though they're buying them from me cheaper. And so I kind of know that even if I'm getting wholesale price for them, that's a price I'm comfortable with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
And it does mean that I sign every single print. And also there can be things like if you're ordering 100 prints, signing them yourself is actually quite a good thing, because you'll see sometimes a print will have a tiny speck on it that nobody else would see, but you will see it and you go, oh, that one's not okay actually. And so kind of having that ownership and signing each one, and even like for my wholesale ones, I put a business card in every single one, because I've got so much work from that. Because you like, if somebody buys a print, they're going to hold on to that a bit more than they are to like something that they've scrolled past.
Mm-hmm.
That's another top tip as well.
Brilliant. So going back to the beginning, would you be able to tell everybody on the call, you know, what sort of where did you start with your art? Do you have any formal training? And would you kind of, if you do, would you recommend that people go down that route? How has that shaped your career?
Yeah, well, so I kind of been drawing pretty much how I draw for a very long time, but I've been basically a professional illustrator since maybe for the last 6 years, but I did go to art school. So I finished school in Ireland when I was 18. I'm 32 now for reference, because I'm going to get muddled up with these numbers. And I did a year in communications in Dublin, and then I decided, you know what, I do want to kind of follow this art thing, and I really didn't know like what I was doing. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know kind of what I wanted to be. So I ended up doing a design degree in the University of the Arts London, and for me that was like absolutely brilliant. But also, when I'm giving advice to kind of aspiring illustrators, like a lot of people, if you're kind of on this call already, you've probably, you know, already decided this is what you want to do. You probably maybe already have your own style. Maybe you've already started. And as well, kind of, it's a very different playing field than it was 12 years ago when I was starting out, because there isn't Instagram, there isn't all the like online tools and benefits that you can do. So for me, art school was amazing. And I think a really important thing is to kind of focus on what you want to get out of something like that. So if you're going to go down the university route, if you're, you know, younger and you're just starting out and you're just saying, you know what, I don't know what I want to do, but it's something creative and kind of university is on your trajectory, I'd completely recommend it. But similarly, if you kind of already know what you're doing, maybe you've already kind of done the uni thing, you don't want to do it again, you've got a career, you don't want to just shut down. And there is such amazing ways to kind of nurture that without also, like there's mentoring schemes, there's kind of even just things like this, like some of my favorite memories from uni were when illustrators would come in and tell us what they did. But now there's so much access to that nowadays that actually I think the main point of advice I give to illustrators or anyone starting out now is like, just like have a notebook, journal, write down like your goals. And it sounds so cheesy, but just write down what you want to do and where you want to get like short term, and then the long term will kind of figure out, because I still don't know what my long term is. It's always changing, you know, that kind of way. I don't know if that makes sense, and I don't know if it answers the question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we hear a lot that particularly kind of aspiring professionals, people just starting out, get a lot of imposter syndrome, and they think, you know, they're not the real deal. And so I think hearing directly from real artists, or, you know, in inverted commas, real artists, you know, they get to know that they are a real artist as well.
Absolutely, like that never goes away. I graduated, so I went to the University of the Arts London. I actually studied graphic design, so illustration was almost like, I specialized that very late in the game, and I pretty much kind of, I don't think I really realized that that's what I wanted to do until I had left uni like a good while. But even up until then, I was working a full-time job and I had like big clients and I was doing good work, and I wouldn't call myself an illustrator because I was like, well, it's not my full-time job and no one cares. Like if you're making art, and even if you're not selling it and you're not making a book from it, if it's what you want to do, just call yourself an illustrator, because you kind of have to believe in yourself. And that again sounds mega cheesy, but it's true. Like
no, absolutely, yeah. No, we definitely agree with that sentiment. I think you know, a lot of self-confidence is needed, particularly if you are about to kind of make the leap between doing it full time or you know, keeping your part-time job or whatever. It's a scary part of your career, I think.
Yeah, and it is, and it's as well like it's your art is like, it's something that is very close to you, and like before you share that with the masses, like you need to nurture that and feel confident in that in yourself. And actually that, like, I still sometimes struggle with that. So it's a hard thing to do, but I think you're like your own biggest fan, you kind of have to be. And not even in a, like, I don't mean in an arrogant way, I just mean in a, like, if you don't believe in yourself, you're not, you like, yeah, just
Yeah, I think people worry that it's arrogance, don't they? But actually, I don't think any of us are very good at kind of giving ourselves enough credit, and just, you know, being proud of ourselves, particularly, you know, in this field. So
Yeah, and it's hard. And I'm quite a shy person. And again, for me, my work has always been very personal work, and then sharing it with people hasn't felt natural. I wouldn't even say that it's something I didn't like, but it doesn't necessarily feel very natural to me. But at the same time, I was like, I want this to be my career. So it's just finding that middle ground where, you know, you're nurturing your creativity before you share it kind of with the masses or anything like that, but also that you've made the decision that that's what you want to do, not because you feel like it's what you should do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So where did you start in establishing yourself after your degree? You've mentioned that you didn't do it full time straight away. What would you recommend to other people to kind of where they can start?
So with me, I think so. A lot of my friends are illustrators from going to art school, and I think we all experienced quite a similar thing. And it was probably the first time I experienced this, but it hasn't been the last time. Where I got a bit of a creative burnout after uni, so I didn't really want to draw, and I didn't really want to do anything to do with illustration, which is a bit of a weird thing after spending 4 years doing it like every single day and it being your entire focus. So I got a job in events and design, and I kind of didn't really draw for about 6 months. And I think since that, like, I've had periods of that since, and I'm way more fine with it now when it happens, because I'm like, you know what, I'm just not feeling it right now. And then I got an email from someone at MTV who had been to my degree show and had seen one of my illustrations that actually wasn't even a part of my projects or anything like that. It was an image I had made for the print store. And they wanted to use it in their office. And suddenly I got this like motivation and kind of this, I just wanted to do it again. And actually for me, I do find like I sometimes struggle with personal work because I have so many ideas that I can't whittle one down. So I ended up doing some work for them, and it was like my first proper client brief. And I think just from that, it kind of gave me the understanding of where I wanted my work to sit. So what I love most working with clients is when they see my illustration style and then they kind of ask me to do it, but also with something that I haven't done before. So for instance, like working with Derwent, I've done like lots of projects with them where it's like, we like how you draw, but can you use this thing you've never done before, or draw on black paper, or like that. And then with MTV, it was like, yeah, do your images, but also how do you feel about doing a glass design? And it's kind of been like, oh, I didn't really think I've never done that before. So I think as creatives, when you're starting in a career, think about, I think we all have like this thing that you should maybe have dream jobs that you should be aspiring to. Whereas I've never really had that, but the jobs that have come in, it's been kind of like briefs that actually challenge me and maybe scare me a little bit has kind of been the sweet spot. Whereas if it's like, we like this image you've done, can you do that again? Is a bit like, nah, couldn't be bothered.
Yeah,
so I think starting out when you're making your portfolio or you're getting your work ready to share for people, I guess it's like quality over quantity, and kind of do the work that you want to be hired to do. But also I wouldn't focus on, I wouldn't focus too much on Instagram or anything like that. I think Instagram is brilliant and has its place for things, but in terms of securing clients, I think entering things like competitions and showcases and things like that are industry events are going to get your work seen kind of outside a screen or like in a different space is really, really beneficial. Another big project that I got after the MTV project, so the thing with MTV, it was a project that was in meeting rooms, so that was like a walking advertisement for me. So I had my artworks up in like giant murals up in their meeting rooms and a glass design. And then also I entered an open call for WeTransfer, like probably about 2 months after that. And I had some of my illustrations on their backgrounds. And I got lots of print sales from that. And that was kind of amazing, kind of instantly. I was glad I had my shop set up and everything like that. But also I did get like other jobs from that, because obviously, although, yeah, it's still on a screen, people who are mostly working in the creative industries were seeing my image while they're sitting there waiting for a file to send. And it clicked through to my website. So things like that, obviously, I guess I was quite fortunate that I got those jobs, but it's just, I think focusing on getting your work into a different space and kind of under the right eyes is really important. So things like the AOI do awards, and even if you're looking, like if you're struggling for briefs, a lot of like the Folio Society do book illustration brief competitions, and sometimes that can just be quite good to focus on working to a brief. Yeah, I'm kind of going on one now, I don't know.
No, that's all really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about trying other, things out of your comfort zone and how that inspires your creativity. Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard another artist describe trying different media types as like listening to the cover of a well-known song, because it's something you know, but it's in a slightly different light. And I thought that was quite a good analogy.
Absolutely. Well, like, it's another thing that I always recommend. I think I touched on it before, but I recommend anyone starting out to do, like, to journal. And I don't like just making a list, but I mean, like, setting goals, but also I genuinely have it beside me. But I always have a notebook on the go, and like, it's kind of a mix of like sketches, but it's mostly, ideas for personal projects that I just write down and then decide which one I want to do. And I tend to always have one that's like maybe my comfort zone a bit, that I'm like, this could turn into a print. And then, like, for instance, currently I have this like shadow series that I've sketched up that I'm like, I'm going to paint. I haven't really painted small scale. I've done murals, but I haven't painted small scale probably in about 12 years. So they could be rubbish, but I'm going to do it. And it kind of scares me. And I mightn't show anyone, but that's fine. And I think, yeah, it's that thing that, like, creatively, even it, like, once you kind of get your style and you've got your things, like, that's great. But for us to be fulfilled by our work as artists, we need to keep challenging ourselves, and we don't want to do the same brief again and again. And that's why kind of challenging yourself personally is so important, because if you try something new and then you share it, then people are more likely to ask you to do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So have you established quite a lot of ongoing relationships with brands?
Yeah, I have. I think like, another thing that I kind of get asked a lot is like, do I have an agent, or have I ever had an agent, and kind of how have I got the client projects? And it is like, it's a really tricky one, and I wish there was a secret answer I could give, but there's not. Like I said, I think I was quite fortunate with the jobs I got out of uni. I was quite thorough in, like, not exactly like hard, like cold emailing anyone, but I was quite good at keeping contact. So if I, like, the people that I worked with MTV, they moved somewhere else, so they moved to Island Records. So I ended up doing a job for Island Records, but I keep in touch with the people that I work with. And I did have an agent for a brief time. And although, like, that was great and they were great, I actually, like, I prefer doing the kind of client, not even negotiation, but I like the back and forth just directly. I don't necessarily want someone to do that, but also some people aren't comfortable with that and would much prefer someone else to do that for them. So it's completely up to you. And then similarly, like, I think things like, I touched on Instagram a little bit before, but like, Instagram is brilliant for marketing if you're doing prints. I personally don't really want to spend my time trying to chase an algorithm that I don't really understand. So actually, I sell most of my prints through like online platforms. There's one called Wolf and Badger, and they sell a lot for me, and they do Instagram marketing, and I pay for it, and I don't think about it. They don't market my actual profile, they sell it through theirs. But actually, for me, I would rather spend my time creating, working with my clients directly, and letting them kind of do that. So I think it's every person is different. And like, maybe earlier on in my career, I used to love doing print shows and print fairs, and I did like Clerkenwell Design Week, and I did lots of things like that, and meeting people there. That was great. Obviously, the days we live in, maybe not for a while. But I think it's not just about finding your style or what you want to draw. It's also about finding what you want to focus on. So, like, even week on week, I have kind of a priority list of what I need to focus on, like maybe 20% marketing, and marketing can be emailing people again, being like, hi, I exist again. Do you remember we did that project? Do you have anything else? Or it can be going, you know what, I don't want to focus on all these Instagram algorithms. Can I maybe, stock my prints on an online store? And then they'll do that. It's just kind of finding the balance, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from my perspective, obviously working for a brand, I throughout my career have kind of collected really good contacts throughout. And obviously you're one of those for Derwent. I think establishing yourself as somebody who's reliable and obviously very talented, it goes a long way. And I think there's a certain amount of sort of customer service sort of approach to it as well.
Absolutely.
As a freelancer.
Absolutely. Like, I think as well, like I joke about it with my friends, like I've had so many jobs. So I think I've got like quite a lot of skills from like working like years in retail. I also worked in events, like I worked in car rental, like I worked in a lot of jobs before I kind of did this full time. And I think there is that, it's like being reliable. Like sometimes I'm pretty sure I've got the job not because my drawing is any more amazing than anyone else's. It's just like, oh, Claudine will definitely like deliver that and I'm going to do it on time. Like similarly, like now I don't focus on editorial work at all. Some of my friends do, because actually I'm a mum now, so I can't really commit to getting a brief at 5 o'clock one day and delivering it at 9 a.m. the next day. So it's just about kind of realizing there's so much more to learn about yourself. Sorry, there's a siren outside. Establishing a career, it's not just about your style, it's kind of about how you want to work and what you want to focus on. I think, you know, as like obviously the dream is spending all your day drawing, so it's such a little part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting what you say about Instagram, because I think social media in general has quite bad PR. You know, it can be quite a negative space, but actually I think it depends how you curate the content you see at the end of the day. And I think you know, if we're all a bit more disciplined about following people who inspire us and who are a good influence on us, that can be a really positive place.
And yeah, so actually, like I try to give advice about that, because I do think it's very easy to say, and like actually if I had to give like an elevator pitch of what to do to like find your style, because a lot of people ask me that, the best advice I was ever given in uni, obviously Instagram, I mean it might have existed, but it wasn't like what it is now. My tutor was just like, just stop looking at other artists, just stop looking around. I know we tell you to go to museums and be like involved in the industry, but just stop looking at everyone else and just draw. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did that, and I was drawing the same way I used to draw when I was like 15. And then I just never stopped doing that. So I think depending on where you are in your practice, or like what type of day you're having, and if you're looking for inspiration, I wouldn't necessarily look to social media. Or if you're looking for an end goal, I wouldn't necessarily look to it. So I wouldn't start creating a piece to go, I'm going to post this on Instagram, because I will take a photo of my coffee and I will get more likes than I will get on my illustration. And that's fine. But similarly, like I said, with the marketing and with my prints, like anytime I do a print launch or anything like that, like it's great to launch it on Instagram. And I quite like sharing things. Like a lot of the time, like my website is all finished kind of work and finished projects. I like sharing my process. I like showing a half drawn picture, or, you know, like, oh, I spilled coffee on this one, it's a write-off, but hey. And I like having like a bit of a voice and letting people know who I am as well. But at the same time, I don't have 7 million followers, but I do know that everyone that follows me actually followed me, because I've had the account for like years. I think it is that quality over quantity. And similarly on my feed, I tend to follow like a lot more. I do follow illustrators, but I mainly follow kind of like more design focused things. And again, like industry things. If you're starting out, I can't recommend the AOI enough. I say this a lot and it sounds like I work for them, but I don't. So that's the Association of Illustrators. And it's an annual fee, and you'll get like pricing advice and contract advice. And they also do lots of events. I've done loads of events with them, and it's just like, it's been invaluable for me. Even now, I still will use them for like a tricky project that I don't know how to price. But even having that thing of like, they'll kind of stand behind you and have your back if something doesn't go very well, which hopefully doesn't happen, but you know. And then like other things like insurance and all the things that you don't really get taught at art school. They're really helpful for that. So I would highly recommend that if you're starting out. It's like, even if you get one project a year, it's worth it. And also, even if you're not going to get the membership, their awards are amazing. So I actually won their World Illustration Award one year, which was a surprise. And I kind of sound like I'm bragging now, so I won't go on about that too much.
Not at all.
But for me, I still enter, and it's a really beneficial thing of it is to it makes you critique your own work. So you look at all your projects from the year and you're like, right, which is the best one and what am I going to put forward? And for that, like, that's very valuable, because a lot of the time we can do work and kind of deliver it and forget about it, but actually looking at it and going, what went right with that and what would I have done differently, and like, what am I most proud of, and kind of putting that in front of the industry is really important. I think it's not about like who wins. It's about actually going, you know what, this is what I've done, And it doesn't need to be commercial work, it can be personal work. And they do a show every year. And I think it's just like, it's quite, yeah, it's a good way to interact with the industry as opposed to like scrolling through other artists and thinking they're all better than you. But they're not, they're just different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you mentioned, challenging yourself and trying different things. Your preferred media type is pencil, I believe, and you've used paint a little bit as well. Are there any media that you avoid? Are there any media that you particularly like outside of pencils?
So no, there's definitely nothing I avoid. I work digitally every now and again. So like I've never done any digital work. And as I said, when I was demonstrating the kind of drawing to the print, like I barely use Photoshop. But I do actually use digital drawing like a good bit for client work sometimes. It depends on the brief. So if something that I think is going to have a lot of kind of design edits, I'll tend to work digitally. And also I sometimes work in a very similar style, but I think I have quite a different style digitally, where I think I mentioned my background is design. So I tend to start with like a pencil sketch that can be maybe quite busy of something I've just drawn, and I'll just simplify it so much. And it actually ends up like taking me so long that actually I'm much quicker just doing it in pencil. Whereas if I work digitally, I tend to like overly perfect everything. And so I kind of stay away. I work digitally for certain things, but I think my thing with digital is I have to make sure that I embrace kind of the mistakes and the no going back, because as you'll notice, I don't really use a rubber, I just go with it. And then similarly, like I used to do a lot of murals and kind of bigger work, and I think now I did a mural. I've moved to Glasgow, so I was in London for 10 years, but I did a mural recently here, and I actually got I've done 2 murals here, but I actually got someone else to paint them for me, which feels like really weird. I was just like, oh, I should just paint it myself, but actually it's not my comfort zone, and I've done the design, and actually it's better for me to just outsource that, because the guy that I got to paint it, he's done one for me last year, and like it took him 2 days and it would have taken me 3.5 weeks. So I think there's something like, it's a bit like me saying with the marketing, like it's okay to not do everything, and it's okay to say this isn't my thing. So I kind of avoid giant painting now, but like I said, I have this kind of little small canvas project that I'm doing just for fun. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question.
Yes, no, it does. It does. I think
and it's not that I'm I used to love painting murals, but just now with my lifestyle and everything, it just doesn't really make sense for me to do.
Right. Yeah, no, I think what you said about sort of having the confidence to say no, even to yourself, is a good bit of advice.
Yeah.
We actually have had a question come in via email. This person is asking, do you always work from left to right and top to bottom? Also, does this inform the rest of your drawing and allow you to continue seamlessly?
Yes. I mean, I don't think I've ever thought about that before. Yeah, I think I do. And I think it's for like smudge reasons, because I'm right-handed. And again, like I said, I tend to work from one point and work the whole way out. So I don't do, which I thought was really normal, but apparently most people do like layers and then layer it in. And I will go over it at the end. Like I said, so I do a lot of wildlife drawing as well. I tend to just start anywhere that's not like an eye or like the most focal point. But I guess, yeah, so I'll start like near a focal point, and then this will kind of be the main bit. And I think as I go kind of further down an image, like I'm thinking of, I can point you to it, but it's like my bare image is like quite concentrated at the top and then gets just a bit more flowy and less focal towards the end. I think it's something I do quite naturally. So yeah, I do usually work that way, mainly for smudging. And I just work the whole way out. But it definitely does have effects. So there's kind of different parts of it. I will never have the same amount of detail in the whole illustration. And just because graphically, I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself like, I don't work photographically. I'm not making an exact replication of anything right now. But I think as well, as I get more into it, I think I get a bit like looser with it. So yeah, again, don't know if I've answered the question, but I've answered.
You have definitely answered the question. So I think one thing that anyone who's kind of looking to make the leap and put their work out there, they might be wondering, what might the pitfalls be that I should be aware of? What do you have any advice with that, and what pitfalls did you kind of come across early in your career?
I mean, I think the main one was confidence, and actually I just didn't have that for years. And I think I was quite smart with like when I left uni, I obviously, as I mentioned, I had a bit of a, like, I don't really feel like drawing for a bit. So I worked full time and I worked through uni, and I was very good at saving money. And I kind of had in my head a kind of a like business head, creative head, business being like, I need this amount of money before I can take a chance at doing this full time. So just saved quite a lot. And I think that was quite good for me. So then I got like quite a big job. A couple of years, I think it was 2 years after I finished, I got a job for Apple. And that was my first time ever using digital that I mentioned before. So I was a bit like, don't even mention imposter syndrome, because I was shaking for that whole project, like shaking hand model, trying to use an iPad, going, I don't know what I'm doing. And then for me, that was kind of a turning point, both in like financially, I was like, right, I have enough money now from like the few projects I've done on the print sales and all of that I've just saved, that actually I can leave my job and the worst thing that can happen is I go back to it. And I think that needs to come, that there's a different point in that career for everyone. And actually that doesn't even have to come, because you don't have to do it full time to be an illustrator. I think it comes back again to what I said about like journaling and just, you know, setting out your goals. And your goals might be, I want to make a series of prints. And for me, like, I remember actually it was way after this, I didn't have much project work on. I was like, I'm just going to have an illustration show. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to book a studio space, an exhibition space. I'm going to do a new series of prints. And for me, that like £100 deposit I had on a space was like, well, I have to do it now, because I've told people it's happening. So I think there's a lot of advice that I'm giving now, but basically have confidence. You don't have to do it full time to be an illustrator, but also if that is your goal, just take the leap when it makes sense for you, and you'll kind of know when that is, and it might never feel right, but also know that you can always go back. And also if you're struggling with like, maybe you haven't ever had a client, fine, set like personal work goals on the type of work you want to get, and don't focus too much on like the brand you want to work for, because most of my like most of the brands that I loved working for, I never knew wanted to work with me or that I wanted to work with. And then again, like the social media, like I would say, decide what you want to get out of social media, and like kind of plan how you're going to use that. So rather than just kind of going, well, I'm going to post this picture on Instagram, actually think like, who are you trying to engage with? And also, are you creating work for Instagram, or are you creating it for yourself? Because actually, before anything else, like you need to nurture it for yourself and then share it. So that's a lot of advice. I hope some of that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very welcome. I think, I mean, to kind of summarize what you said, I think it's almost about taking confidence and comfort in the fact that there is no right or wrong way of doing it, and you've just got to go for it.
Yeah. And as well, like it's always changing, like your career and life will always change. So I don't know what's around the corner. I kind of don't really know what my next project will be. And that's not for everyone as well. And that's fine. Like I have friends that are illustrators that are like, I want to have my full-time job and I will do this for fun. And I can say yes and no to things. And if a project never comes up, that's what I want to do. And if you carve out an hour of your day to do this, like that's actually a lot of time. Because I worked, like I said, I worked full-time for like the first 3 years of my career. Then I had 2 years doing it full-time. Then I had a child. So now I'm doing it like around that again. So it doesn't need to be like 50 hours a week. It just needs to I think you need to prioritize and really like decide what you want to spend your time doing, and decide what you want to focus towards.
Definitely. Does she have the drawing bug? She definitely likes drawing, making a mess. She can weirdly write her name, which is very, like, everyone compliments more so how she can hold a pencil, because she's only 2, and I'm like, it's all she sees me doing. She tells her dad to like, Daddy, get off your phone, Mama, stop drawing. Like, okay. Oh, bless her.
So it's nice. She knows how to hold a pencil, and she can draw. She tends to, she draws me a lot, which is very interesting. But
Great. Well, I think that was all of our questions that we had on the list. I think what would be really nice is if you could just kind of talk everyone through your process as you're going through the rest of this rose. That would be great.
Well, like I said, probably I work from top to bottom. Like I said, I tend to kind of just pick maybe, so like I'm drawing this rose here that I've kind of sketched out. I'm kind of picking, I started, as you can see here, So maybe like not the main focal point, just kind of almost like warm up on this leaf. And then go into the red. And I get a lot of questions on like how I choose my color palettes. Like I'd love to give a more kind of like very considered question, but I genuinely look and then look at the pencils and then just grab some and I just go for it. And then I pick some more up as I go along. And then I tend to just, as you can probably see, like I still just hold them all. And I actually haven't paired these pencils since I started, which is very like odd for me. So they do really keep their point. And then as I go along, I work from kind of one point out, but then I tend to go back, and as you'll see here, so like this is mainly reds and blues, but as I'm looking at it, I will pick out bits of like yellow and just kind of lean quite hard over it to kind of just pick out those highlights. And I used to always laugh, like when I was kind of drawing more than I am now, because as I mentioned, I don't have as much time as I maybe had when I was doing this full time. But I like have calluses on my fingers because I lean very heavy. And I think that that's also like a tip I give when I'm doing drawing classes is like, don't be afraid of your material. Like the worst thing that can happen is like the pencil snaps or you don't like the image or whatever, but actually leaning pretty hard really gets the pigment out. And I think like that whenever like I've exhibited kind of originals before, even my prints, people often ask if they're digital or if I've kind of, you know, Photoshop leveled them up a bit. And my tip is no, I just lean really hard. And then yeah,
something that we recommend a lot is you know, working the pencil into the grain of the paper, for sure. And that is one of the benefits of Procolour, is that it will kind of hold up to you know, a bit of abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I wouldn't describe myself as delicate in any way. So yeah, and I guess so drawing for me, it's like, it's, as I said, like my daughter will be like, Mama, put down the pencil. It's like, so it's not a very considered thing for me. So I don't really think about it when I'm doing it, which is really nice. So it's kind of like, it's quite relaxing for me. And that's why I've said, like, similarly, like, that's why challenging myself creatively is quite important. So it's not even like drawing for me is like quite natural. I tend to steer towards like botanicals and also like animals and wildlife, but actually maybe like when I want to challenge myself, I will, you know, try to draw a toddler, which is quite tricky because they move quite a lot.
I saw that on your Instagram the other day.
Yeah, so actually like that image that you're talking about, like it started as a sketch, but then I actually ended up doing kind of the detail of it digitally. And like while she was asleep, I was like, I can draw these curls while you're asleep for hours. So like that was quite, it's like a mix of being relaxing and therapeutic, but also like quite challenging.
I thought that was lovely, your style with those that curly hair. I thought worked perfect.
The creative gods sent me a curly child. We didn't know where it came from, and it's like wasn't expecting curly hair. But challenge accepted.
So you know, we've got about 13 minutes left, just so that you know, because I think we might I think the call might end quite abruptly at the end of the hour. So
good.
Just so you're aware.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, so I tend to like lose myself when I'm drawing a bit, so I never really know what time it is or how long it's taken. But I guess like another thing, I think it comes back to that advice I got from my tutor when I was in uni. It's like a lot of the time we're like, so like we live in such a visual world, especially if like we're kind of, you know, studying illustration or going down that route, or even as I said, like a lot of my friends are illustrators, and we have that imposter syndrome where we kind of, you know, maybe think everyone's better than us, or we compare, or even just like admire other people's work. And then just because you're looking at it all day long, you kind of start going, oh, maybe I could draw a bit like that. Or maybe it's not even a conscious thing. You just subconsciously end up kind of copying trends that are out there. And I think that's like, and I did that a lot when I was in uni. I kind of was like, oh, I'm going to do this really like fine line marker illustration with lots of outlines, which is not me at all. And that advice, just draw and actually don't think about it. I have a sketchbook beside my bed, and my sketches like are terrible. And there's no other way to describe it, because actually you asked about my daughter, we go to the park and we sit down, and she goes, Mama, draw us, or Mama, draw like that person over there. And she's quite a insistent art director. And Rob is like, you know, you're a professional illustrator and you're not very good at, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not very good at sketching under pressure with someone breathing down my neck telling me to like made up. But actually it's quite challenging and it's quite good. So I think just like drawing for drawing's sake, whether you work digitally or you paint or anything like that, I think most of us kind of just start with a pencil. Like even like, I think, yeah, that post that you're talking about on Instagram that I did, like even my digital drawings start on paper. Even like I said, I did a campaign for Apple, and that, like, I had to send them a sketch proposal, and they're like, did you do that on the iPad? I was like, no, I probably should have. No, I didn't. Oops. Because it's just my go-to. And I think there is like, it comes back to that, like, I think now it can be so tricky because people feel like, you know, like Instagram is this amazing platform, how do I use it? Either like I can't use it at all because it's terrible, or maybe I'll draw something and share it there, and what if no one likes it? Whereas actually, like, step away from that, just draw for yourself, and then if it doesn't work out, no one cares. Like, and yeah, you need to just kind of nurture your own thing before you kind of share it with other people, and that goes with like client stuff as well. And I think it's like personal projects are so important because you're literally going to get the work that you share. So you're going to, like, it's amazing when a client just kind of see your work and they've worked with you before, they can kind of push it in a new way or suggest something new. And like similarly, that's why I kind of went away from having an agent, because actually I love having those conversations with clients, and I love kind of having that design interaction and kind of going, oh, like, how can we push this, or how can we do this in a different way, or how can we kind of both get something new out of this. And I think, like, for me, that's really important. I don't kind of just want to churn out like the same thing again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. I do find it quite disheartening when I see on Instagram, you know, artists making a comment about the algorithm, and you just feel like, oh, that's something that is really bothering them. They're really worried about how much their posts are being seen, and you can see how people get into that trap of you know, being a slave to the algorithm.
Like, I actually get that, because I actually, like, genuinely the other day was like, you know what, I might start a new Instagram, because I feel like I have this Instagram that's a private one that's basically family spam of my curly haired child, and I swear it gets more interaction, and like it's private that has like 11 followers, right? Because I won't let everyone see it, because I don't really want to share her on my work page or whatever. And then like my work page used to get quite a lot, and now I post something and I'm posting it mainly for me. Like I don't well, not, that's not true. I post it because I like sharing my process and things like that. People do see it, but I don't get 7. Like I have, like, I think I have like about 10,000 followers, but I don't get like 700 million likes on things. And I don't necessarily know if I'm using it the right way, but also it's not a priority for me, because actually I could sit there and I could figure that out for like an hour and probably like brain sweat, and then I wouldn't be drawing. So actually for me, and this isn't really advice, this is very much so just my personal kind of thing about it, is like, for me, that's not that important right now, because actually I prefer to have a conversation with a client or with someone that I can work with. And like I said, I'm still selling prints on there, and I've still got like online retailers selling my prints. So for me, the fact that I'm not getting loads of whatever on things, it's not my main focus. That's not why I'm making work. I'm not making work to share it on Instagram. Yes, I am sharing the work that I make on it, but not everything, and that's not my end goal. So yeah, I don't even know if that's good advice. That's just kind of my honest advice.
Yeah, to be honest, I think a lot of people would share that feeling about all social media, to be honest. We have actually had 2 questions just come in. So Penny is asking, what sort of paper do you use?
Whatever's going. So this is I got this from London. This is like, I bought a big giant like thing of paper from London, from like John Purcell paper. So it's just a smooth cartridge paper. I also use like pads. I think all of my sketchbooks are usually like Derwent sketchbooks, and I have like the Derwent black paper that I work on as well. But it's just smooth cartridge paper. It's very, like, there's nothing special about it. It's slightly off-white, and yeah, that's it. It's just smooth. So I don't really work on a grain, and I prefer smooth, but again, that's just personal preference.
And Fiona's also asking, how long do you normally spend on an illustration typically?
It depends. So my wildlife ones take the longest, mainly because I work mostly, well, it depends. So I work from a mix of sketches. I used to do wildlife drawing classes in London. They actually do them online now, but the times don't suit me because I have to put a baby to bed, which I highly recommend. It's wildlifedrawing.co.uk, I think. Just Google wildlife drawing. It's another illustrator called Jenny, and she runs them. And I used to do that like 3 times a week. And it was like a lot. They were in different locations. Some of them, like I went on bird watching trips outside London, and like took loads of photographs, did loads of sketches. So I kind of compile them all to make an image, and then like sketch it out and kind of make it up a little bit using lots of different references. So they're never, like I said, they're never perfectly accurate. And so they can take me usually, I did try to time it once, usually about like maybe 18 to 20 hours. Because I spent but as well, they probably look like I spend a lot of time on them, so I go really slow. Whereas when I'm drawing botanicals or something like that, they're a lot more like fast-paced or fluid to me. So they're probably like 2 or 3 hours. This one is, I'm doing this quite fast. So this looks fine on a screen, but like I'm not happy with this when I look at it straight. This one, other finished version, much better. Probably exactly the same to you, but
they do look both beautiful to us.
So yeah, it really depends. And then, like I said, funnily enough, when I work digitally, like I do some work. Most of the client work that I do digitally is actually for digital clients, because obviously they're going to want me to do it digitally. So I do some work for Apple, and I also do some work for Procreate, which are the pencil, or the app company, the app that I use. And they actually take me longer, again, because I think it comes down to like I tend to edit it more. So I like just like zoom in and do every little line that no one can see. I quite like that. And that's why it comes back to my like, done great work for Instagram, because actually my work doesn't look, it's not its best at a tiny little square. It's quite detailed and looks quite good in real life or in a print or really zoomed in. And so again, it's like, I think why I kind of love my job. It's because I'm not like, when I get a brief, I'm not going to go, well, how fast can I get this out the door? I'm like, well, I've done it 8 times because I enjoy doing it. I did a job for a whiskey company that it was actually a collaboration with 2 of my friends, and I did that in pencil. In hindsight, maybe digital would have been better because I drew the same eagle 18 times. All of those original drawings.
Wow.
I drew a bird for a company. I was like, I drew that bird so many times. So like, and as well, like, because as I said, like I lean very hard. It's not like I can just rub out and do the wing again. I was like, well, I'm starting again. But also I enjoy it. So it's not like, yeah, I guess it's like the process is the enjoyment for me. I never tend to look at something and go, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I tend to be like, oh, whatever, that's done now.
You could do that eagle in your sleep now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Claudine. It's been really fun chatting, and thanks for all your advice. I'm sure that everyone who's joined really appreciated that.
No worries. Sorry for the camera struggle at the start again.
No problem. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining.
Bye.